now that we have the basic wing pretty much already assembled and built, we're moving on to installing our included electronics and motor speed controller. And this piece here, the bottom skid, is actually, again, like I said, it's personal preference. This will be going to be mounted right down the center line right here. And I'm just going to temporarily press that there so you can see what it looks like. That's where it would sit. Again, I would wait until the wing joint completely dries before you actually put the slits to install this piece in place. So we're not going to do that just yet. And this way we still have a better, more of a flat surface to work on this airplane, on the Stinger here. The next step here, we can go various different routes here. First of all, once we get to the electronic installation portions of it, I would like to have you have your electronics ready, meaning have the servos out of the bag, have the motor ESC ready to go, and then have your transmitter and receiver of choice, whatever you're going to be using, ready to go as well. Because there's a couple of tips and setup things that we need to be aware of before you actually go ahead and mount the ESC and the motor to the actual motor box. With that, let's go ahead and talk quickly about, first of all, the ESC. The ESC actually comes included with a plug that some of us may not use. It's a little white plug, and I can't remember the name of it, but this is going to be flying. You can choose to fly it on 2-cell, and if you change the electronics on it and you want to fly it on 3-cell, it's it's personal preference. And then, especially with the number of different types of plugs on the market, I choose to use JST style plugs, which is this little red plug. And I've gone ahead and cut the other plug off and solder this plug on there, because this is my majority of the batteries that I have in the 2-cell setups. This little Thunder Power 325 here is a great little battery for this setup. Fits perfect, nice and light, keeps it very agile and very floaty, and that's what we're looking for. I mean, unless you really want to weight it down and make it go super fast, these things already go pretty fast. So I've already done that. So that's not, the plug again is personal preference there. Let's talk about the motor box quickly. The motor box is going to be mounted, zoom this in a little bit, is going to be mounted in this configuration right here. The motor box is built for you already. You don't have to do anything with the motor box. It's completely ready to go. It's going to be in this configuration right about here, and if you look very carefully, which it's going to be near impossible for the camera to pick up, the slots are already cut out for these little tabs here that are on the motor box, and they slide into place there. So you want to locate these tabs and then kind of make sure that they're cut out deep enough, which they already are, and the actual area is pretty close to where it needs to be. And the way I do that is I just line this up with the trailing side, the trailing edge of the motor box and the flat portion here where the motor's actually going to sit, the outrunner. And I will basically do that, and then I'll press down on it. And or if you choose, you can grab a Sharpie once again, and then you can mark these tabs here. And when you press down on it, you can literally see where the marks it has made right there. And then I'll go ahead and slot them a little bit more to make sure that they insert at that point. Okay, but before we do that, there's a couple of things we have to be aware of. This little outrunner motor here is mounted. I'm going to go ahead and zoom this in some more here. Okay, this little outrunner motor here is mounted to the back of the motor box here by 3 Phillips head screws. And these screws are screwed into this little outrunner by the bottom side of this motor box. Okay, so this part here we need to talk a little bit more extensively about, because there's a couple of options. First of all, once you screw that in there, I like to have my electronics running on the inside of the motor box, so it's not being seen on the outside. But the easiest way to do it, of course, is once you've got the motor box on there, and you mounted the motor to the motor box, you could run the entire speed control and the motor wire to the speed control on the outside of the motor box, which means you'll basically be attaching the ESC to the side of the motor box just like that, or you know, on some people will attach it to the main wing itself, depending on however you choose to do it. I like my ESC sitting on the inside of the motor box down here, and then the wires running this way and then to the ESC like that once it's mounted on there. However, that creates a problem, and the problem is sometimes if you pull on the battery wire too hard, the speed controller plug to the motor, it's a pre-soldered, installation ready 3-pin style, so you just plug it right in. There's potentially the possibility of actually unplugging it. If you unplug it, you're going to have to remove your motor box to get to that wire again, unless you have really small, thin needle nose pliers that'll get in there from this side here underneath and then plug it back in. So that's always a choice as well. So this is again, it's personal preference, and before you do this, you must have your radio system ready to check the polarity of this motor. If your motor is running in the opposite direction that it needs to, all you're going to do is you're just going to flip the ESC plug, or the motor plug, whichever direction it went in the first time it was rolling and it was rotating backwards in reverse. You just flip it 180 and then plug it right back in, and then it'll be fine. So now we're going to just go ahead and locate the bag with the little O-rings, the little prop adapter, and the little Phillips head screws. The screws in here are the same for the motor mount and for the actual prop saver. So we're going to go ahead and install that. Let's see. Here we go. So I'm going to be running my motor like that vertically, and then the wire I'm going to be tucking underneath, because there is a cutout on the motor box right about here. And I'll be folding my wire right underneath and running my ESC underneath here. Well, I'll basically double-sided tape it to the top of the motor box. So now you're just going to grab your small little Phillips head screwdriver, whatever you have. Eyeglass types of small drivers are the best. And you're just going to use 3 screws, and the bottom of the little outrunner is threaded, so you'll just be basically screwing that in there. Again, personal preference here. If you choose to, if you're super meticulous, you can put a little drop of blue Loctite down there. I don't see a need for it. This thing is so small, and vibration is really not an issue with this, so we're just going to go ahead and screw this in. And once you've done that, we'll meet you back over here. Alright, I have the little outrunner here mounted to the motor box via the 3 little tiny screws in here. Tip here for you is, if you're having a hard time getting in there with the small screwdriver, you can use a little longer screwdriver. And if you have a hard time lining up the screws with the actual holes because the screws are falling off the driver, find yourself a speaker or something magnetic with a magnet, another motor or something, and with the tip of your screwdriver, just rub it on the magnet a few times, and then it becomes magnetic on the tip of these drivers. And you can actually, the screws actually stick to the tip, and then it's a lot easier to just insert and then screw it in there without the screw falling off of the driver. So that's just a tip for you there. But, however, keep in mind, if you do that to your screwdriver, you don't want to use the screwdriver on any electrical components later on, like if you're going to be opening up your transmitter or something like that. You want to keep away from something like that, or if you're working on laptops or anything electrical like that. Okay, so now that we have that mounted into place, this little area here is going to be really hard to pick up, but we'll do our best. There we go. This is the adapter for the prop saver here. This little itty bitty silver thing. Okay, we're going to grab our propeller here, and we're going to test fit this just to fit it on one side. And let's see here. The side with the smaller little flange there is going to be the outside. So we're going to just slip this onto the tip of the outrunner here. There we go. Pop it all the way down. Sorry about that, out of the camera. We're popping that all the way down into position. Okay, you can see that that is right here. It is down in position. It's down flush against the motor. And now what we're going to do is, I'm going to back this off a bit. We're going to grab the 2 remaining little Phillips head screws and put 1 screw on each side of this little prop adapter. Tighten that down and flip that around. And then we're going to do it one more time. Just like that. So this is what it looks like when you're complete with the prop adapter on the motor here. And what that is, once again, is your propeller will be mounted onto the motor like this. And then you have this little O-ring here, little black O-ring, and that goes around from one screw to the other screw. And that'll keep it from breaking, and it'll pop off if you need to, if it breaks or if you have like a tumble or anything like that. Okay, now we need to take note, which is very important now. This is the reason why I said you have to have your radio system ready. Because if you're going to mount this speed control here, on the inside of the motor box, we need to make sure that the motor is spinning in the correct rotation before you actually mount it in there. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with a ESC on the inside of the motor box and then have this motor box glued to the top of the wing, and you're not going to be able to reach it. So now what we do is, these propellers are not pusher props. These are actually regular rotation propellers, and we're looking for the motor to actually be rotating in the position where it's actually, it's technical, but anyway, we'll just do it the easy way. If you look at the propeller here, the prop will say GWS on it, and then it'll say the numbers EF-5030. That we'll call it the front of the propeller. And then the back of the propeller is a lot more shiny with no lettering on it. The front of the propeller is more matte finish, okay? And we're looking for this propeller to be mounted with the letters of the propeller facing the front of the airplane. And that's what the rotational value we're looking for. We're looking for, if you're looking at it from the nose down like this, the propeller will be rotating counterclockwise. It'll be rotating this way, okay? So now we will, you just take a guess here. It's 50-50. So you plug in your speed controller to your little motor, and then your radio system that you have set up and ready to go here. We're going to turn on our Aurora 9X, grab our Optima receiver. I'm going to plug this into channel number 3, which is throttle. Keep in mind, if you're using a different radio system, it may not be channel number 3, so try to locate which channel that the throttle, actually the ESC, plugs into. So no motor, no propeller on there right now. We're just going to plug in the radio system. I'm going to transmit. There we go. Okay. Those initializing tones tells you that this is plugged in and it's ready to go. Now we're just going to give it a little bit of throttle and see which way the motor is spinning. Okay, it is spinning the wrong direction. Again, like I said, it was a 50-50 chance to get this in the right direction. So this is spinning right now clockwise if I'm looking nose down at it. We need it to spin counterclockwise. So all I'm going to do with this plug here is I just unplug it to the speed control, and then I flip the speed control, or flip the plug. In this case, it's easier just to flip the speed control and then plug it right back in. And then now we're going to throttle it, and our motor is spinning counterclockwise if we're looking nose down from it. This is for the sake of the camera being able to see the back of the motor. So now the propeller will be mounted onto the prop saver with that little rubber band, and then it'll be spinning counterclockwise, once again looking nose down, which we will not do that now until we're done with the actual complete build. So this is the way we know that this is the correct setup. And now is a good time to put a little piece of electrical tape, a little piece of scotch tape, whatever kind of tape you have on the plug to keep it from unplugging. If you choose to run it on the inside or the outside, it's better just to have a little piece of tape on there to keep it together. This is what it should look like once you have your motor and speed controller connected, and if you do choose to mount this to the inside of your motor box. You have a couple of choices here. You can mount this to the inside of the motor box flat right on the bottom here, or flat right on the side here. I mounted the other ones flat on top, but this one I decided to try to choose to mount it on the side. If you mount it on the side, you have a little bit more space for the actual receiver that you're going to be using, and you can see the Optima will fit right in there, and it's nice and flat and nice and flush. So that's why I choose to run it on the side. The battery will be sitting out front right here, and I think this fitment right here is pretty good, depending on, again, what your actual setup is. So this is ready to go here. I'm going to go ahead and unplug this from the receiver, and we're moving on to our next step here. Just so you understand, on this motor box here, right here, I don't know if the camera can pick it up, right there is a cutout right here. And what that is once the motor box is mounted to the top of the wing here, when you're running your servos, your servo wire can actually be inserted underneath here and ran to your receiver, if you decide to run it underneath. Otherwise, my friends are just running it on top. That's a option as well. But you don't need to do that like right as of like now, right away. Right now, what we're going to do is, I would like to mount the motor box and then move on to the next step. And we're going to go ahead and line this up and press down, and we'll check for the marks again, and they're in the right places. So we'll go ahead and use the X-Acto and kind of score it just a bit. It's actually better to have a Sharpie in this point, and I'm gonna go really go find my Sharpie.